Your job, Ad.
That is
Come on,
my.
mate.
All right, fine. It's
Yeah.
my job. Welcome everybody to episode 37 of the You Can't Comp This NBA Trading Card Podcast. I'm your co-host Adam Amy, joined as always by my co-host Russell Gibson, and this week we have a very special guest. Joining us from New York is Raymond Li, and Australian guys might know the name. Raymond, thanks for coming on the show.
Absolutely. Glad to be on. How's it going, guys?
Good, good. You caused a bit of a stir. There's been a recent acquisition, and look, Russell and I are kind of excited to sort of get the lowdown on what would we call it? It's not like we've got a bit of a ruckus online. There's a lot of people being very vocal, with the changing of the name of one of our beloved Facebook groups, the NBA Collectors Down Under group.
So we definitely wanted to reach out to you, Raymond, and hear what your thoughts were, mate. So thank you so much for coming on. We are very, very grateful to have you on, mate. This is exciting, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. On the other end, I can understand how other people would want to hear a more detailed version of the story.
Yep.
So, glad to be on and provide full transparency about kind of like why I did it, who I am. Just answer like any questions. So
yeah, let's start with that.
Talk, Russ and ads.
Tell us about yourself, mate. Where did you come from? Like, what's your early hobby memories, and how did you get to this point?
Sure. So, from the way beginning, I grew up. I was born in America. Grew up in Shanghai and in California. Moved to New York for university. First got into cards when I was in middle school. In Shanghai, a lot of my friends collected Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh cards. Mainly Pokemon cards. Played a lot of the games. First got in playing Leaf Green, and then I started playing Diamond. I really like the trading aspect of Diamond, where you could trade in the, you used to be able to trade globally on their global trading system. Anyways, kind of dropped that for a few years and got back into cards in 2018, 2019. It was the first time I'd gone to a national. Went to the national in Chicago. Then started getting into sports. Met a bunch of people online. Met a bunch of people at national. And it just kind of started snowballing, one thing into the other. Started doing cards full-time in 2020. Basically living in different places, flipping cards, adminning Facebook groups, and now in 2022, kind of the same. I've been doing it for 2 years now. It's been great. It's been kind of the living the dream life. It's been awesome.
Yeah, good. That's exciting, man. So in our research, we did find an article about you, and in the past you did Wall Street trading. So tell us about your experience in that, and then where you somehow came across into cards. Like, what's your...
Yeah. So the crossover was actually that I had worked at this job in investment banking on Wall Street. So basically helping other companies buy and sell each other, restructure them when they go bankrupt. I hated that job. Like, it was...
Yep.
I absolutely hated it. I was working, about 15 hours a day. And I lasted 8 months there. So I quit before I got my bonus.
How many hours a day did you have to work? Sorry, mate.
15.
Wow.
That's wild. Yeah.
So generally around like from 9 to 12. But anyways, I hated the job so much that I quit without another job lined up. Like, I was just like, okay, I'm just going to take a few, a few months off, kind of like figure out what I want to do next. And no, it's like a really, really big risk. That was a blessing in disguise, because had I not quit that job, I would never have stumbled upon this Gary Vee article that he had written about sports cards being good investments. And that's how I got into sports cards the second time around.
Right.
I was sitting at home because I wasn't working a job, and I saw the Gary Vee article, started digging more and more into it.
So
and then
when I read that, I was imagining you guys just like doing heaps of cocaine and just like out of the Wolf on Wall Street stuff, like, and I thought maybe your mentor was going to be Jordan Belfort, but so actually your mentor is Gary Vee. Is that like where we're coming from here?
I draw a lot of lessons from Gary Vee. I think that there are a lot of things I disagree with,
How
but
many
in
boxes of the
general,
V
like he
friends did
is
you buy?
zero.
Oh.
I was tempted to buy some on eBay.
We
Yeah.
should probably check into the sold prices of that
Right.
recently. I think that's tanked pretty hard.
Have they hit negative yet? No.
Yeah.
Oh god. No, I'm not. No, we're not segueing to that. Yeah. Look, I suppose my first question is more to do with the purchase. Now, we're not going to go into pricing and what you paid. Otherwise, every man and his dog's going to come to you and trying to sell their group. So, but when you purchased NBA Collectors Down Under, what was the goal? There's a group of around about 10,000. I know that's had a little bit of a drop off, but with the numbers that you've got now, what's the goal?
Yeah, that's a good question. As like we talked about earlier, there were two main reasons behind buying this group.
Yeah.
The first was that I am moving to Australia in the middle of September. I'll be in Sydney for at least a year. I've
Nice.
always wanted to move to Australia. Actually, visited. I've been to Australia twice. I fell in love with it both times. I was there for a month after I quit my Wall Street job. So kind of like how the pieces are fitting together now.
Yep.
Quit my Wall Street job. I was like, I really wanted to move here. It's amazing. I was going to make the move in 2019, but that never happened. So it's happening in 2 months. I met a few card guys in Sydney, and I keep in contact with them. And it's kind of like one thing led to another. So I'm moving to Australia 2 months, and kind of just wanted to kind of advertise my brand in the card community there. That's the first reason. The second and probably the main reason is that for the past year, I've been working on a sports card startup called Veriswap. It is going to be the first marketplace for trades and partial cash deals. So right now, there are a lot of platforms where people can, buy and sell cards for cash, like eBay, MySlabs, the PWCC marketplace. But there is no platform where people can trade, like a virtual card show. So we're launching that. I wanted to buy the group to advertise that new platform that will be launching at the National next week.
Mm-hmm.
And also, part of the product is also a vouchers database where, say, for example, Russell, you make an account, you're doing a trade with ads. Ads wants to see if you're good or not. Russell, you have like a list of vouchers that we manually go in and confirm to be like, okay, this one is true, this one is not confirmed, this one is true. So that's going to be a free feature, and the goal of that is to implement it in these Facebook groups to make the hobby a safer place with more transparency when people deal each other.
Where will you pull that data from? Like, can you use eBay sales and transactions from that? And can you use then transactions from, say, Facebook groups? Is that part of the acquisition of what you're also purchasing? In some ways, data, because there is a lot of data in these Facebook pages that just is very difficult to mine, I would say.
So the main benefit of having a Facebook group is to be able to post vouch posts that we then upload onto Veriswap.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So basically, say Russell, you make a Veriswap account, right? You would post on NBA Hotspot group, Bowman Chrome High Rollers, or on NBA Cards Down Under, saying, I'm looking for vouchers on my Veriswap account. Please, anyone who I've done a deal with, please comment if you've been good, right?
Yeah.
So then my team will then go in and look at who comments on those posts, and record those down in the Veriswap database and upload them onto the Veriswap database. And then those are all confirmed vouchers because we know that those vouchers are in fact legitimate. So how that benefits us is that when other people post request size for vouchers, that's social proof for the Veriswap product. Right?
Yeah,
That's
sure.
free advertising and word of mouth. So the hope is that these groups serve as advertising for my product.
Yep.
Ultimately, build something safer and something the hobby hasn't been seen before, which is the trading platform.
Yeah. And I think like as far as you're right, as far as a trading platform, we haven't seen that. Everybody's sort of when it comes to selling your stuff, there's plenty of avenues, but when it comes to trades, it gets awkward and yeah, Messenger, Instagram, it's all these random social media things. Having I suppose an app or a platform to do that on is is the smartest next step. So interesting.
You said the launch of Veriswap is happening at the Nationals. How far along is the product? Like, is it still in beta? Is it a bit further along from that? And also, to how many people are currently loaded into the database? Because the process you're describing sounds quite labor intensive, and I could imagine. I think A, that would be expensive, but also B, getting in sort of like a large enough pool into that would take a bit of time. So where are you sort of at with that at the moment?
Yeah, that's a good question. So uh, we are already launched. We've launched probably about 3 months ago.
Great.
We have around 200 users, um, and we plan on launching the trading aspect, which is our main aspect, um, next week at the national, or in,
Okay.
depending on when we can, make sure it's a solid enough product. But that is in its finishing stages. We're just kind of like putting on the bells and whistles. Um, but the original, like the vouchers database, and we also have an inventory feature where you can kind of like virtually showcase your cards. Um, those features are already live, and you can sign up at getveriswap.com.
Yeah, that's the
Okay,
bit I'm excited about, that you can put your cards into there and go and browse at other people's cards. That sounds really, really good. Yeah.
it's
And
an interesting platform. I'm very intrigued. There's a lot of innovation in the hobby at the moment, and this seems like another example. So, um, yeah, that's definitely something good to come out of it. I think there's a lot of people that were shocked when the name of one of their groups changed. It was how did you react to I suppose the I don't know the loud voices, the very negative voices that were coming back when the name changed. Was it part of the plan to just be purchase a group, change the name instantly rather than go for sort of like a transition, or it was sort of rip the band-aid off and just come what may, and when people react, because it seemed like people got loud, but
Yeah,
the group's still there and there's still a lot of people there, so obviously.
I think there are many parts to that question. So,
mm,
for the first part, what was my intent? I actually bought the group a while ago, probably
yep.
in February or March,
Okay.
and I had not touched any aspect of it,
Yep.
um, and it was literally just like I didn't think too much about it, because I'd done it before, and there was no negative reaction at all. um,
Why does this not
I done it.
surprise me with Australians? We're shocking. We
I
are
done it.
terrible.
I done it in American groups before, that were three
hmm
times in size, no issues.
Yep.
Um, so basically I just kind of thought about it, went to change the name, went to bed, and then woke up with a lot of anger in my soul. um, which is totally
Yeah.
understandable. I granted, like, if I was someone who was living in Australia, had been in that group for years, um, and all of a sudden see the group change, to a foreign name overnight, with a name that they'd never heard of before,
Yep.
I would totally, uh, I'd start
There'd be a
asking different
level of
questions as
shock, I'm
well.
sure.
Yeah, like why did it change? It's kind of like, if Facebook tomorrow turned into like Facebook by Coca-Cola, right?
Yep.
Like if something like that changed, totally understand that. Um, I think that obviously there are things that I could have done to make the transition clear. For example, I could have worked, with the mod team a little bit more closely.
Yep.
Um, I could have made a Facebook post preemptively, um, but I think for me, like, it just wasn't something that really crossed my mind. But in retrospect and like moving down the road, that's definitely something, I will do, whether that's like an Australian group or an American group.
Yep.
I think transparency is always appreciated. I think um, I think the main reason why people were upset, which I didn't think about until a friend had messaged me, was that they were suspecting that I was cherry picking cards by turning post approval on. That was something that honestly had never even crossed my mind. Personally, I haven't bought a card in months. I haven't
Where
bought or sold a card in months.
where do you think that rumor came from, though? Because I think that's actually an important thing for us to talk about. That was actually on my list to talk about, so I'm
Yeah.
glad you brought this up. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that I think that rumor has logical grounds. Like that seems like the most obvious step that you would take if you were to buy a group and like want to like make short term profit off of it, right?
Because you flip cards, and that's the perception that you come with, that you're in the card business and you flip cards for profit, right?
I think that's part of it. But I think like it's kind of like the logical. I feel like it's the most obvious logical thing to do, right? Like I think that yeah, I'm not really sure where that rumor comes from, but it just seems like the most obvious logical thing, right? If you were to be like, oh, why should I buy this? What are the advantages of buying a Facebook group? The first thing would be like, oh, you get first dibs on the cards.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Especially with post approval on, someone's gone, oh, he's bought a group. Why is post approval on? And Pete, the cogs start turning, and you're like, that's a lot of posts to approve. And then someone goes, well, he gets to look at the sales before they get posted, or the mod team get to look at the posts. Do you know what I mean?
Correct.
So they're like, why are they doing that? And that's as you said, it's a logical conclusion to draw, not that it's a correct conclusion.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like if I were on the other side as well, like I would believe that too, right? Like if some random person called David Smith bought the group and turned post approval on, all of a sudden, I would be like, oh, David is definitely cherry picking all of the cards.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I haven't bought a card in months. For full transparency, I do plan on turning post approval off once things cool down.
Yep.
But on the post approval side, I still have been seeing like some negative things. But the plan isn't to like leave post approval on, and the plan is definitely not to cherry pick cards before they hit the market. Like if I wanted to do that, there were a million groups I could have picked before NBA cards down under.
Yep.
That I could have, I could get the cards in 2 days or overnight instead of waiting a week.
Yeah.
From like completely different hemisphere.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think in short, like I purchased this group because I wanted to promote VeriSwap. I'm not like obviously like I don't want to make any promises about where like what I will and won't do for the group. I don't want to make promises, but I do want to use it to advertise the VeriSwap brand, whether that's changing the cover photo, a combination of like VeriSwap and NBA cards down under, editing the name to include VeriSwap instead of my personal name.
Yeah.
But the way the group is going to be run, the way the dynamics of the group are not going to be changed. And I don't have any intention of like running it so that
we're not going from an NBA group to a secondhand clothing group all of a sudden. It's not. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So just to respond to what you've just said then, so I think the primary thing for me is that you are not putting on post approval to buy and flip cards. So you've gone on the record for that. I think that's fantastic.
Yep.
I think the other thing too is, from my perspective, adminning pages takes time. So I think if the perception was that the owner of that page sold the page out to you, the true people in my perspective, have got grievances are the admin, who are then left behind not getting remunerated, and then also not being able to sell the page and like get a cut of it. So I'd probably say that will be the people that I think should be disgruntled. The members of the page, like, why did 2,500 people leave the page? I don't, to be honest, I don't really understand all of that, particularly when all I can externally see is that it's changed is like the rebranding of it. So I suppose where I'm going with this is, and I'm going to quote you, I intend to bring what I've learned from other groups to help it grow and flourish. So really what I'm trying to lead you into now is like, tell us what your vision is. Like, tell us how you are going to improve the community, because in some ways, actually, I'm flattered that you're here buying a page in Australia, because I think that actually shows that the card community here is doing really well.
Yeah.
And that's my underlying belief. Like I actually believe my life is better for being part of this community. So for me, it's just like what I do and how I interact with people. It's It's really special to me. So yes, I see how people in the community are disgruntled, but here's your opportunity to like tell these people. And you don't need to make promises, but tell us like what your intentions are. Like tell us about your principles and what you want to do for the community. Because I think if it's just about Veriswap, I can see how people would become disgruntled. If that's your entire vision, I think that's going to be a problem.
Yeah. So the grander vision is to make the group safer. So being an admin in the NBA sports card scammers group,
Yeah,
seeing kind of like the negative repercussions of bad transactions across other groups,
yeah,
and being able to immediately kick those members from my other groups, along with cleaning up NBA cards down under, um, will make the group safer. So I think that's like kind of the number one thing.
this sounds a bit like regulation of the hobby, actually. Adam,
I
what do you think
don't.
about
I
this?
knew you were going to start with this, and I definitely got me on board with that.
So
Um,
Adam's catchphrase is regulate the hobby. That's
Yep.
why we're sort of going down to that.
I do
Sorry,
like
that's
the
an
idea
inside
of
joke.
safety
Yeah.
and the fact that it is a relatively unregulated hobby that has a lot of money involved in it and a lot of value that does sort of that isn't sort of watched over, and people can get burnt very easily.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you, mate. Please keep going, because this
yeah.
is really good. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's about regulation. To be honest, I think it's just more about getting rid of scammers. In the NBA admin chat. Yeah, continue, guys.
No, as I was going to say, I was going to make a tongue-in-cheek.
Oh.
Have you thought about buying the scammers group so you can blacklist a bunch of people on Veriswap? And then we can just like insta blacklist them all. The scammers page.
Happened in February, my man. No, I'm just kidding.
It's too soon for jokes. Come on, man.
It's never too soon for a joke. Oh, yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, I think what we're getting at. So I think like being an admin in a lot of these larger groups, I have insight into like even like before scammers posts get dropped, like whether or not something's about to go down. And Facebook has this feature where you can kick the same person across multiple groups all at once, and they can block any accounts that they create by IP address. So that's like one of the things. It's just to keep the hobby safer. Another thing is also just promote kind of like the international perspective.
Yeah.
So I want to get more. Tell me if this is something that Australians don't want, but and I won't do it. But I want to get more Americans in the group to kind of bridge gaps between different areas of the world. Like I work a lot with the Philippines. I work a lot, obviously, with Americans, and there is that gap. And I have been kind of inviting some Filipino people into the American groups. But I think it'd be cool if like the hobby was like a more international place.
Agreed.
Like
it's hard posting international though. Like I've got a US shipping address, so for me it's easy to buy off US pages. Like it's great. Actually, I'm a member of Hotspot, so that was something else I wanted to mention earlier. I've noticed no difference since you've taken over that. So for me, it's like business as usual. If I'm trying to give some people of the Australian card groups, some reassurance, that will be like what I would say in that. And what you've said tonight seems like quite reasonable to me.
With international, and I'm going to go from the newbie perspective. I've come across a lot of people in the hobby that are new to buying, selling, trading cards, and posting a card interstate for them is difficult.
Yeah,
posting a card internationally is something they never thought they'd ever try and do. So
it adds layers. I definitely agree with that.
There's a fear factor there for people, but the option for should be there. I definitely agree that not everybody is scared of it. I do think there'd be a level of transparency that needs to be made with trading or buying posts in the group if we're going to encourage international transactions. Just so everybody's on the page and go, like, at heart, this is an Australian group, and there are going to be people that expect to trade locally. But yeah, like that's going to happen. It's just an education thing with the group.
Yeah, I think like breaking down the borders in the hobby doesn't necessarily have to be through transactions, right? It could just be through relationships.
And
Like,
Yeah.
discussions and yeah.
like I like in the past years, I've spoken with a couple Australian collectors, Arthur, Ed Lee,
Yeah.
uh, like we haven't. Trying to think about it, we've never transacted a single card in the past 3 years, right?
Yeah.
But we've talked about lives in our different countries, and like seeing content. And another aspect is like content, right?
Yeah.
Like content from America is very different from content in Australia, which is very different from content in Asia,
For
right?
sure.
Um, so personally, like I enjoy seeing kind of like the kind of seeing how like other people in the hobby do it.
Yeah.
And it's just more of a, it's just very, very, very interesting to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're coming up to the end of our agreed time, and there's 3 other things I want to talk outside of all of this. So, is there anything else, Ad or Raymond, you want to talk about before we move on?
Well,
Yep.
I think the door I've just got to follow up to the last little bit about
Yeah.
content, and I think that's great. The group in the past is like we're focusing on NBA collectors down under has been pretty much like a buy and sell group. Is that when you just discuss content? Is that something where we're sort of opening the doors to just general discussion about the hobby? We're trying to get people just interacting. We're not trying to get fire sale after fire sale after fire sale. That you actually want, I suppose, card enthusiasts discussing, like actually talking with one another and engaging as a community rather than. Is that something that you see can evolve within a group like this?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I definitely think that discussion and relationships leads to long-term health of the hobby.
Yep.
Like I think transactions only do so much.
Yep.
If the hobby is to be, long-term, sustainable, I think for people to ultimately enjoy it, right?
Correct.
Like if I buy a set of Zion prisms from you, like I can get that from anyone else, right? You know, but if I personally know you as a person, ads, and
Yep.
and we talk, for months after our transaction, and we
Yeah.
discuss like, oh, like what do you think Zion's going to be like when he returns, right? Like I feel like
Yeah.
that leads to like a lot more interesting conversations because like
For
let's
sure.
face it, like nowadays, like a lot of these cards they're commodities, right?
Yep.
Like one Zion prism is very similar to like another Zion prism. So what
Yeah.
sets one person apart, and the other is like the relationships and like
The
kind
relationship.
of like interaction between
Yeah.
people.
100%.
That's it. Yep.
Yeah.
Knowing what cards somebody collects, knowing what players' PCs or side PCs are, and then knowing you see a card that pops up and you go, I know somebody that collects this player. I'm going to reach out to that person. Hey man, how you going? Saw a really cool, I don't know, Kuzma card, blah blah blah. Alex Caruso,
Exactly.
whatever. Someone want it. I've got it. What's your address? I'm going to flick it across to you. I know you collect this guy. There's a lot of that happens in the hobby, locally anyway. People we'll call them care packages, but they at least interact and tell cool stories about cards that they know people will be interested in. And I think, yeah, you're right. The community aspect is something that's undervalued sometimes.
Yeah.
But
So-
yeah.
Any final thoughts on that, Ray? Or are you happy if we chug along a little bit?
Yeah, let's check along.
All right. Tell us about your podcast.
Yeah, so it's called the Asiancards podcast. You can find it on Spotify.
Why did you call it Asian Cards? Actually, I forgot to ask you this earlier.
Yeah, so basically, when I had started initially into the hobby, there were not too many Asians in the hobby, and thought it'd be a funny, interesting name in a way for a very funny, memorable name. That's why I picked it.
Can I say something without sounding offensive? All of the counterfeit cards in Magic the Gathering come out.
Really?
The good counterfeits come out of China. So when I saw Asian cards, I'm like, are these genuine or fake cards that we're talking about?
My friends have told me the same thing. They're
Yes,
like,
I thought so.
Yeah, which is why I changed it. I recently changed my Instagram Instagram handle to my personal name.
Yep.
And then I changed my personal account to Asian Cards because I didn't want other people taking the Asian Cards name and then doing stuff with it, like scamming or
Yep.
scamming or whatever.
tell us about your podcast. What do you do with that, man?
Yeah. So I think the direction I want to take the podcast is to give a platform for people with unique, undercovered perspectives on the hobby. For example, I used to go to the Dallas Card Show every month, and there are a lot of people who are always at the Dallas Card Show, always hustling. They, they're a very familiar face on the Dallas Card Show floor, or even on Facebook groups.
Yeah.
But no one really knows who they are, kind of like their history in the hobby. It kind of goes back to connections and relationships, right? No one knows their background. Seen this face a million times, but no idea who this person is.
Yeah.
Right. I always thought it'd be really cool to kind of give people a platform to kind of tell their story, and kind of hear their perspective on things.
Yeah. And I think this hobby's got a lot of different personalities, so it's definitely, yeah,
a lot of different personalities. Yeah. Another aspect is more of what I'm personally interested in. So having a background working in finance, having studied economics in college, I'm really interested in the markets and pricing aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go to my YouTube channel called Raymond Li,
yep.
Or if you search Asiancards, you'll find it. Half of the videos are about me and my friend talking about auction prices, where we think a certain card will land, our perspective on certain items as they're finishing an auction. It's just something that I really enjoy talking about.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Sounds interesting. We should check that out, actually. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. It's I mean, obviously we do a lot of sort of card ladder and looking at different variations and where we can find value with cards. But yeah, the auction element, I admit I do like seeing what Golden have up for grabs and what the big ticket items are, I guess. Especially, I mean, that triple logo man was a big watch piece for us a little while back.
There's also another triple logo man ending this auction. It's the Kobe LeBron Jordan.
Jordan, that's right.
Triple logo man,
that's more of a holy grail than triple LeBron. Well, all right, so what's your perspective on that one? What's the bigger grail card? Is it the triple logo man LeBron or the Jordan Kobe LeBron?
Oh, definitely the Jordan Kobe LeBron.
Yeah.
No doubt. I think what people don't really think about is because the triple logo man LeBron got so much press attention, but there is no stopping Panini from making more.
Yes.
In 2022 and 2023, especially if LeBron goes to a new team, my friend and I looked at the card, could theoretically fit 4 logo mans onto that card.
Oh my god, no, mind blown. Can you imagine that?
We were measuring it, and we're yeah, you could fit.
Panini would do that too. If you've thought about it, they'll do it. That's it.
Yeah, it's true. Well, we talked about that. There's so many different ones you can make.
There's so many different ones you can make, different combinations. In fact, LeBron doesn't even need to go to a new team because the 75th logo man is already different from the regular logo man. It has the sheen.
Oh wow,
it's shiny.
Yeah.
So they could theoretically do a Lakers logo man, but just make it 75th anniversary, right? And people would still suck that up, right? They would talk about it all day.
Points of difference.
That's cheating. That's cheating.
or they could even replace what's worse for the current owner is they could replace the third Lakers logo man with the 75th anniversary one, right? And that would not be good. But
that would be nice. And then hopefully they could gem the card too. Actually,
not authenticated.
Don't. Let's not get Panini too many ideas.
This is actually a perfect segue. So, Raymond, there's a link I just put into the Zencaster chat. If you don't mind just clicking on that, it'll take you to our podcast group. And one of our listeners, Andrew Dean, he's very supportive of us. He put up a My Holy Grail Dream Collection. So we wanted to ask you, because you must have come across some absolutely monster cards in the world that you're dealing is. Tell us about your Grail card.
Yeah, so my Grail, these are some nice curries. My Grail card is late Kobe autos. I collect the in-flight set from 2019.
Yeah.
I think the design on that card is awesome. Someone told me they actually used the same image. I think it was for 04 Topps Chrome. Okay, but I really like that set
Yep.
because of the pose. It's on card. It's one of his last autos, and
Yeah.
it has like an eerie feel to it. Um, and then actually picked up the gold version of that card
Oh wow.
in earlier this year. I actually believed that they didn't exist. Like none surfaced up until then. The best in-flight card that had surfaced was the tie-dye. So I was like, okay, Kobe probably didn't sign these before he passed away.
Oh,
But
okay. Yeah.
but since then, two have popped up in auction. One on gold and one to PWCC. I got the one on PWCC. I really like that card. Like that. Yeah. Yeah. I think it's very underrated.
You really like it.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, so those are the main cards. The main cards I collect. I do have like some investment pieces, like I think 2015 Ronaldo Flawless or Flawless Soccer in general is like a very underrated set. It's the
Yep.
only game used soccer patch auto set, and the print run is very short, and any kind of like the F1 Dynasty, it's like everyone who holds it has diamond hands. They don't want to sell them.
Yeah.
Interesting. I'm not in that F1 like space at all, so I don't really see that. But some of the prices that's coming out of F1 now just seems like crazier than NBA in some ways.
It's crazy, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it comes down to supply. There is not a lot of supply of those F1 Dynasty products, whereas NBA you have so many products, right? You have Prism,
Yeah.
Select, Football Chronicles, like Optic, like everything.
Yeah.
It's like NT,
Yeah.
right? Stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, and Dynasty is I think one card a box, which is insane.
Wow.
I think NT is. I'm not familiar with NT. I think it's probably like 5 or 6 cards a box. So if you think about it, like they're just kind of hard to find.
The
If you buy
print run
Keys of
must be.
Dynasty, it's only like 12. It's only like 12 cards. Yeah.
Jeez. Yeah.
Yeah. Not many. I
Not
still
many.
don't know if I've got a Grail card.
Yeah.
Alrighty, lads. I think we're up to time, so I think we just say thank you, Raymond. Thank you so much.
This has been great. It's been
Yeah.
really, it's been fantastic. I'm glad we sort of got to
talk to you, man.
to
Yeah.
talk to you and sort of hopefully once well, the people that listen to the pod anyway will know that there's no, you're not there to scam cards off everybody with your post approval. But yeah, like it is people, as we said, we all understand how emotional it can be when you see something's changed and the shock that you go through. But hopefully this has given you an opportunity to sort of clear the air with some of the members of the group, and yeah, I think the future of the group is great.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for having me on today, Russell and Ads. And for, I guess, those of you guys listening, if you have any suggestions on how we can make the group better, I'm open to all ears. So just feel free to DM me anytime if you have any suggestions on how we can improve day by day.
Yeah, man.
And
Great.
if they've already listened to our podcast for the week, jump and check out Raymond's podcast.
Yeah.
We'll pop a link in our show notes and stuff.
Awesome. I appreciate it, guys.
No worries.
Thanks, lads. Have a great evening.